Tonight, we have a special, I don't know what you call it. Not a surprise, but maybe a privilege. I'd say this. Here's what's going to happen tonight. Shockley is going to come and share, but before he comes and shares, I just want to maybe tell a little bit. This guy, he's our intern, okay? Some of you know him as just Aaron. I don't know if anyone knows him as Aaron. But Shockley or Shockley Face, or the guy who just says, for days, like you, or the guy that we blow up all the time. This guy doesn't just lead us in worship all the time. He works hard. He works a lot of hours beyond what his internship pays him for. And I can't say enough about how proud of him I am, and how over this last year to this point, he has busted hump to help create the space that we gather in and the elements that we work through. And sometimes he works so hard, you might find him like this. He's working so hard. Sometimes he's Snapchatting so hard that you find him like this. Look at that, his mouth is just hanging open, and I come around the corner and he's like, and sometimes you'll find him on the beach. Find him on the beach trying to hug the sun. That's a pretty good picture, by the way, is it not? And we'll go back. Sometimes he's teaching me new things. We were learning how to do the live chat, Snapchat video, sitting next to each other. He's driving, so that's a confession, I suppose. But he was trying to teach me how to use Snapchat. But tonight, this is going to be the guy that's going to be sharing. So, yes, you can't take him out in public, people. All right, but I got to say this. I'm proud of him, and I'm excited that he's going to share tonight, and I'm asking you to not only welcome him well, but to listen close, okay? Listen close, all right? Shockley.
I'm so happy to see you guys. I did miss you. Last week we had Night of Worship with Northside, and I just want to thank you guys so much for coming out to that. It was really cool to see all of us in one big group, just worshiping together, and that's where my passion is worship and singing songs and just praising. But I did miss you guys, whether you believe that or not. I really did. But my name is Aaron Shockley, and most of you don't know me as Aaron because my parents actually get my name wrong. And the funny story there is, if you didn't know this, I have an identical twin brother. And if you want to know what he looks like this. So, identical, like 98.9% identical to the DNA, which is kind of cool, it's kind of fascinating. So if you ever see a guy and you go up to him and you're like, Shockley, what's up? And he's like, hi? That's my brother. So, and it's happened multiple times. So don't feel bad about it, it's happened. I think it happened this past weekend when he was in town. So that's what I like to do. I like to take my brother to work. It happened to Kara. Yeah, you're welcome. So we have this unwritten rule, me and my brother do, to where if anybody comes up to us, we just play it off like we have absolutely everything. We know everything they're talking about. They're like, Nate, how you doing? I'm like, oh, I'm great. What's up with you, man? How you been? How's the family? And then 5 minutes later, they realize that I'm not Nate. And it's a great joke to play. Ask Ben about it. But my name's Aaron. You can call me Shockley. I want to tell you a little bit about myself, how I got involved with the Return, because in order for you to take me seriously, or you actually don't have to take me seriously, but just to listen to what I have to say, I want to tell you a little bit about my background. So I was raised in the church by an awesome mom and dad. I was in church before I was even born. Embarrassing story, Jen, or Noakes, has seen my ultrasound, if you didn't know that. But she is probably the reason, the main reason why I'm here today. And her family has really poured into me, and I'll get to talk to them and embarrass her a little bit later on. But I've always grown up in church. I've always been around church people. My home church is right down the road. It's Christ Community Church of the Nazarene. That's where I spent 20 years of my life. And then you're like, well, how'd you end up here? What happened? Stuff happened, and I went to college, and college happened. And so I kind of went off this beaten path, did my own thing, and I got hurt by some people, some relationships, some people I thought were close, lied to me, spread rumors about me. So I kind of did my own thing, went off that track, and it was literally Noakes who kept saying to me, like, hey, why don't you come to Northside? Hey, why don't you come to Northside? I'm like, no, I'm good. I just want to do my own thing in college. I just want to kind of feel like what this real world experience is. And I felt like I was missing something. Something in my life was missing. And so I grew up in this great church. I grew up in a great family. It kind of pieced out on religion. And it took really, really good friends and really good family members to kind of pull me back. And so that's what I'm going to talk about today. We're going to talk about what it means to be fully included. And you can't really talk about being fully included until you talk about including others, because when we're talking about the return, for instance, I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for somebody else. And I'm sure you guys have a similar story. I'm sure that somebody invited you to come to this crazy group of friends that hang out, have free food, and we blow somebody up on TV all the time. And so when we talk about including other people, we have to talk about including other people and our friends. So I have a really quick question for you. Our audience participation is requested, not required, but requested. Has anybody been a part of a group before, ever? Like a sports team? Oh, that's a lot more than I was expecting. Yes. Funny story. Has anybody sorority? We have a sorority. No dudes raise your hand. Sororities? Put your hand down, Jake. You're not in a sorority. Fraternity? Wow. Well, good for you. You don't have to pay for well, you were in a sorority. Anyway, I'm just kidding. Sorry. But a sports team. Anybody play sports in college? Some of us are in college. Ben, you're not in college now. What about high school? High school? What are some of the sports you guys played? Say it out. Basketball? Volleyball? Okay, you said enough. Did you say cheerleading? Thank you, Sean. Anybody else? What other sports team were you part of? Soccer? Okay. Football? I was on the golf team, if you can believe that, because I was cool like that. But that was a sense of, did you guys feel like a sense of like camaraderie, family in this group? Did you like being a part of this group? Being a part of a group is it's something that we strive for. We all want to be accepted. We all want to be just accepted for who we are and feel like we belong somewhere. I have a funny story, again, about my brother. And my brother was in marching band for 5 years. Any other marching banders? They're like willing to admit it. Like, yeah, I was. Not really. But so my brother was in marching band all 5 years. The way you're like, wait, high school's only 4 years. But in order to be in the marching band, to be in the higher level band, you had to go to marching band as the summer before your freshman year. So he was in it for 5 years, out in the pavement, passing out, playing trumpet. And I was in the orchestra. But the funny story is, my senior year, they needed somebody to run a soundboard because they had soloists with microphones. So they needed somebody to run the soundboard, and they knew that my brother Nate had another brother that was somewhat musically gifted. And so they asked me to run the soundboard. So what that meant is I got to dress in the marching band uniform. And I had 2 weeks to learn the routine and to learn all the songs and everything. And I stupidly said yes. But after that, homecoming, or the senior night came, and I got to walk and dress with every single other person in marching band that had done it for 5 years, and I was only in it for 2 weeks. And I thought it was hilarious because the whole time we're just sitting there smiling on the football field, and my mom and my dad are in the middle of us, and they're so proud. It's me and my brother, and my brother is just mad. He's like, I did this for 5 years? 5 years, the whole time, and he gets to do it for 2 weeks and walk, and I'm like, yep, haha, the whole time. But I got to be a part of that group and a part of that. So what I want to, and we all want to be included and accepted. We've all invited somebody to the return, and someone has invited us. And I remember playing Frisbee, ultimate Frisbee, with a few people here. with Tyler and Barber. And does anybody play Ultimate Frisbee? Awesome. If you don't, Bailey's shaking her head like, no, I'm not even going to try it. If you don't, you should. It's awesome. I don't do it because I'm not athletic. But I met these really awesome group of guys, and like Tyler, Bannett, 3, or Michael. Just weird to call him Michael. So 3. And these people, this is when I wasn't like as like solid in the return as I am now. And these people I just got to hang out and play Frisbee with 2 or 3 times a week. And all of a sudden, Tyler started inviting them to the return, or what this is. And it was really, really awesome to see that now you have Tyler, and you have Bannett, and you have 3, and you also have like a Becca, a Bailey. You see all these people of the return, of you guys, that are in Northside, and that are serving somewhere and influencing and affecting what happens in this building every single week. And I think that's awesome. I mean, I'm on stage, and I love to play music and everything, but like some people were like, well, that's your job. You work there. That's what you have to do. And it's like, actually, no, playing on the weekends is actually, it's my volunteer. It's what my passion is. That's what I love to do. But when I get to see you guys take that step and get to like see you holding a door, I've said hi to Maddie a few times when she's opening a door for people. I've seen a whole bunch of you guys just helping out and serving. And so I just want you to listen to this story of 3 and how he got joined with us. Take a listen.
I was born in a Christian home. My family went to church every Sunday. Then one summer, I was outside playing with my cousins like normal. And it was getting late, and I noticed that our parents weren't getting home like they normally did. Our grandma takes us, sets us on her lap, and she's like, your mom won't be coming home. She had a wreck and she's passed away. For a while, we just lived where we lived, and then our dad decided that it wasn't going to work out, him starting school, working, and trying to raise 2 kids. He just couldn't do it on his own. So he moved to Jeff in with my grandparents on my dad's side. We lived there for a while. My dad found a girlfriend from our church that we went to. So he started dating her, and then when I was 9, they got married. A year after they got married, my dad was diagnosed with cancer. So they cut it off, did treatment. My dad was clear from cancer when I was 12, and then when I was 13, he was diagnosed with cancer for a second time. Dad and stepmom fell out of church when I was about 15, and me and my sister kept going with our step-grandma. And then when I was about 17, I got a job working fast food. I started opening on Sunday, and I kind of fell out of church. I always wanted to try the Army thing, so I joined the Army. I left in 2012 in February for basic training. Towards the end of it, it just wasn't working out, so I got kicked out of the Army. Ended up back at home. I got my job back at the factory. I kind of lost the social life because the friends I would hang out with no longer hung out with each other. After I turned 21, a few weeks later, a friend from high school that I didn't talk to often, she invited me over to 4th Street to hang out with her due to the fact that I was 21 now. Well, I didn't know she was working, so I went over there to hang out with her, and she was working, so I ended up still being there with no one to talk to. Ended up making friends with some of her co-workers, and I would occasionally go over there from weekend to weekend, and then it progressed into going out every Saturday. And then eventually I ended up getting a buddy to go with me, and we ended up going together on Saturdays, and then it progressed into going to 4th Street Friday and Saturday night every weekend for about a year. This time he's got a girlfriend and he stopped going, and I'm still going, but there's not really any purpose for me going over there. I could feel my relationship with God slipping away. It's just not where I really want to be. I'm doing it for a social event. And I love to play Ultimate Frisbee, so I get on Facebook one day and I post a message saying, anybody know anybody playing Ultimate Frisbee? And a guy from high school that's on my friends list messaged me and told me about a guy that I know that plays Frisbee in a community park. So I messaged this friend, and he's like, yeah, just come on out. And so I did. That first day I was there, he wasn't there, but I ended up meeting some pretty cool people that I've begun to get closer with at community park by playing Ultimate Frisbee. I ended up stopped going to 4th Street because I had a better social life. And then I always heard Tyler talking about the return. I asked him what it was about, and I got to think about it, and I came one weekend, not knowing what I was getting myself into, but I kind of liked it after the first time, so I kept coming back. And I just got a stronger relationship, met new people, and I have more things to do now. I don't just play Frisbee, I come to the return, I go to the return events, hang out with people outside the return. Just a really good atmosphere that I grow to love, and then I also get to get closer with God with it, which is what I've always wanted. Now I help out with the return, picking up afterwards. I've gone to Romania and did a mission trip, which was spectacular. Occasionally, Shockley lets me play bass on Wednesday nights. I am Michael Bennett, and we are The Return.
Well, thank you, Michael, for telling us your story. And I remember, I don't know if it was the very first time I met you, but on the Frisbee field, and just being able to see from you then and to now has been amazing and phenomenal. And I'm sure we all have stories like that. And like you may be thinking, like this ultimate Frisbee thing, what's the deal? Like that's not the thing I want to focus on. The thing I want to focus on is how, as in Michael said in his video, how Tyler invited him to come to the return. And when we want to include people, we have to invite them. We can't expect them to show up if we're not caring enough about them to say, hey, I go to this really cool thing, and I would love for you to be a part of it. Come check it out. It just takes a simple invitation. And so we're going to dive into some scripture real quick, and maybe you may be asking yourself why. And when I was studying through this stuff, and I kind of wanted to really hit on why, because I'm not really smart, so I like explanations that are pretty blatantly obvious. And why do we invite people? And that's simply in 1 Thessalonians 2:8. I'm just going to read this real quick. Kyle was talking about this a couple weeks ago. And it says, 1 Thessalonians 2:8 says, we loved you so much that we shared with you not only God's good news, but of our own lives too. So like the first part of that verse says, we loved you so much. Like you cared so much about this person that you felt the need to share not only God's news, but your own life experience and what God has been doing through you. And so I hope that like this was the kind of the focus that I wanted. This verse, I really wanted to use this because that's what I'm trying to do right now. I'm trying to tell you God's news by what He's done through me and where I've come through and what struggles I've been through. And so, like I briefly mentioned, Noakes has been pretty much one of the sole reasons I'm here today, like why I'm standing right here. Because when I went through this kind of rebellious peace out mode, her parents are like my second parents. They've known me my whole life. They know me better than anyone else. And like I was so stubborn that you couldn't tell me anything. Like I wouldn't listen. It's like, hey, why don't you come to church? And it's like, nah, not really feeling it. I don't really want to do that because I was hurt so badly by a really close friend that I didn't want to do that again. And every single week, she sent me a text saying, hey, we're going to go to Northside. You want to come with us? And for a couple months, 2 or 3 months, I was like, nah. And then finally, when you try to fill this void that can't be filled and you wonder why, I finally said yes, and I'll go check it out. And it was kind of funny because that first weekend I came to the 11 o'clock. I know where I sat over on this side by the sound booth. And I remember there was a screen that said, volunteers needed. And my family has always been musical. My mom's a music teacher, and so I've always been a part of music, and that's been a big passion of mine. And so this screen came up asking for musicians to play on the worship team. And Jen's mom, Linda, was like, hey, you should sign up for that. You should try it. And I was like, no, they don't want me. They don't want me to do that. And so the sign came up the next week. I couldn't believe it. The sign came up the next week, and Linda was like, well, why don't you just put your name in? Jen's mom was like, why don't you just try it, see what happens? So I did, and I got to play on main stage for the first time on my birthday, which was a pretty awesome gift, I thought. So after this verse, we loved you so much. Linda, Jen's mom, and Noakes, Jen, she loved me so much that she kept inviting me. And so we're going to dive into 1 Peter. So if you want to turn there real quick, 1 Peter chapter 5, verses 5 through 6. And I'm going to ask you if you would do something. We're going to try this one really quickly. If you wouldn't mind standing, we're going to try this. The reason we're going to do this is because I just want to kind of not enforce, but I want to just focus on how powerful and how amazing this is right here. And if you don't have a Bible, it's going to be up on the screen. But if you don't have one in your hand, pull it up on your phone, open it up in your Bible, or there's Bibles back there if you want to get it. Take some time. Just get it out. Every one of you. Here we go. Okay, so 1 Peter, and this whole standing of honor, of magnitude, do you realize what you're holding is the Word of God? I mean, do you realize I didn't really truly understand this until I started diving into it? Until you start looking into it and asking, why did he write it like this? Why did this happen like this? Or why is this even recorded? Those are great questions. So let's dig in and see what it means to invite people. And the context of 1 Peter is the writer is talking to the elders of the church and the young men, the people that are serving in the church. And so we're going to start at verse 5, and it says, young men, in the NLT version, it's going to be up on the screen. It says, in the same way, you who are younger must accept the authority of the elders, and all of you dress yourself in humility as relate to one another. For God opposes the proud, but gives grace to the humble. So humble yourselves under the mighty power of God, and at the right time, he will lift you up in honor. Okay, you guys can have a seat. Thank you. And we're going to focus on a couple things real quick in this verse. But that was the NLT version, same one that Kyle used. But I like this version that I have I have the NIV right here. And I'm going to read it real quickly because there's one word that I like that it uses. And it says, starting at verse 5, young men, in the same way, be submissive to those who are older. All of you clothe yourselves in humility toward one another, because God opposes the proud, but gives grace to the humble. Humble yourselves, therefore, under God's mighty hand, and he may lift you up in due time. So one of the big, important topics in this passage is accept. It says, in the same way you who are younger, accept authority from those who are older. And this isn't like, okay, this person told me to do this, and so I'm just going to do it. No, it's like you take what they say to heart. Not just brush it off just to make them happy. Learn from them. Figure out what they're saying, and then it's kind of like a mentor and a student. And all through Scripture, you'll read that all the great leaders that we remember, all great leaders had great leaders. And this is kind of a cliche one, but Peter, the starter, in Acts, the start of the first church, great spiritual leader. But where would Peter be without Jesus? Where would he be without all of his mentoring, all of his pouring in, and all the mistakes that Peter did? And Jesus saying, no, that's not how we're going to do that. We're going to do it this way. Great leaders have great leaders. And so you have to be willing to accept that, accept authority. And the reason I like this one, the NIV version, is because it uses the word submissive. And this is kind of an interesting word because it doesn't put it in the NLT. It just says obey, accept the authority. Dress yourself in humility. And so in my Bible, there's a little side column, whatever, and it kind of gives more explanation to what submissive means in this text. And that's in Ephesians 5:21. I'm going to read it real quick for you. This verse simply says, in accordance to submissiveness, submit to one another out of reverence for Christ. So it's not even saying, like, do it for the authority figure above you. It's saying do it to one another out of reverence for Christ. You're doing this because you're a Christian and because you're set apart. We're doing it because we're honoring God with our decisions. And the next part, the third big topic of this verse is humility. So when I say humility or humbleness or humble, what do you guys think about? What comes to mind when I say humble? I'm sorry, what? Charlotte's Web? Okay. That's the one about the pig, right? Okay. Whew. Good. Anyone else? Okay, Dumbledore. Anyone else? Cool. That works. What comes to your mind? There's no wrong answer. Like, what comes to your mind? Or some of you are like, oh, he's looking for an answer, which is true. Yeah, I am looking for an answer, but there's no wrong answer. Elsa? From Frozen? Oh, where's Colton? Colton? Man, if you haven't heard Colton sing Let It Go, don't, but it'll change your life. It'll change your life. So I looked this up. I wanted to get the literal definition of humble, which you guys probably already know this, but having or showing a modest or low estimate of one's own importance. Like, wow. Ow. Like, is that like, not to be confused with insignificant. Like, it's not that you're insignificant, it's showing a low estimate of one's importance. And so it says in this scripture, humble yourself before God. God opposes the proud and gives grace to the humble. Wow. So I told you the story about Noakes, about Jen, and how she kind of got me here. I want to tell you the story about when I first got on the stage to lead worship. And this may seem kind of insignificant, but just kind of a perspective of who I am and where I'm coming from. But if you didn't know this, I have stage fright. And you're like, well, you're in trouble now. But I do. And I was a music major at U of L, and I have a bachelor's degree in music performance. And when I told my advisor that I have stage fright, she looked at me and was like, well, what are you doing? Like, why? But when Jen's dad, Steve, he was my old youth pastor, and he kept pouring into me, and that's where I first started playing electric bass, and I was horrible. Like, I was bad. If I even got the note right, close to the same measure or bar or anywhere, I was doing good. Like, I was having a good night. And so I started playing bass in our worship praise band for the youth on a Wednesday night, and the worship leader at that time decided he was going to transition out and transition to another phase of life. And so we were stuck without a worship leader. So Jen's dad comes up to me and says, I think you would be a good fit to lead worship. And I sat on the other side of his desk and just literally like, I'm sorry, what'd you say? I don't have good hearing. But yeah, he invited me to lead worship, and I thought he was nuts. I was like, no, I'm good. I'll just slap the bass. I'm not gonna sing words. No. And so he was like, okay, that's fine. And so we kept trying different people, and finally I said, okay, I'll try it. And he was like, okay. I did it. I got up there and I led worship, and I don't even remember what song I sang and played, but it was horrible. But I remember him coming up to me afterwards, and he goes, because I just had this look about me. I was just like defeated, and he goes, that was probably one of the best worship services I've been in. And I was like, what? Were you listening? Are you sure about that? And yeah, he just hugged me and said, I'm proud of you. And that's how I got started leading worship. And the reason I tell that story is because when I finally was able to muster up the courage to go onto that stage and perform for a whole bunch of high schoolers and middle schoolers wasn't anything I did. It wasn't anything of my ability. And I literally spent an hour and a half in a storage closet praying my lungs out. Praying, just saying, God, I can't do this. God, I'm not capable of leading worship to these kids. And the answer I got back was, I know. You're not, but I am. And so I'll do it for you. And so anytime I get up on the stage, whether it's here, whether it's main stage, whether it's in the middle school or high school, my prayer is, God, I can't, but you can. So if you want to include the unconnected, you must invite the unconnected. And why? Why would we do that? Because someone took the time to invite you. Someone cared enough about you and about me to invite me here. And our story just doesn't end here. Our story started, my story started a long time ago when I first took that stage to lead worship for a whole bunch of high schoolers and middle schoolers that I had no idea what I was doing. And no idea that, I don't want to be a worship minister. But Jen's dad took the time to invite me into that. And each one of you is here because someone took the time to invest and cared about you enough to invite you here. So, as Ben, one of the sayings that I love that Ben always says, and if you don't have this written down anywhere, write it down everywhere. But before this can become home, you have to believe it can become home. Before this becomes home, you have to believe it can be home. So who are you inviting? Someone invited you here. Who are you inviting, or who are you investing? And that's not, you might think that that's going and finding your closest friends at school and be like, hey, let's go to church. Let me know how that works out for you. It starts with actually caring enough to listen to their story. And one of the things that Kyle said this weekend that I absolutely love is people don't care about how much you know until they know about how much you care. And I was like, oh, that's a good one. I'm going to write that down, which I think you should too. People don't care about how much you know until they know how much you care. So who are you inviting? Who are you taking the time to invest in and caring about? Your friends, your family, anyone. So I want to challenge you. Just on the top of your head, you want to write it down in your notes. Just think about it later. Think about a close friend. Someone who may or may not be religious. Someone that you think would love the return. And then invest in them. Invite them. Care about them. Tell them why. Tell them your story and why you come to the return. Why do you call this place home? And maybe they can too. They can call the return home. So let's pray, and we're going to break into groups.